Hey everyone, thank you for listening to Escaping the Chains podcast. The episode that is coming up, we are interviewing Jackie, and I just wanted to give you a heads up that this interview or this testimony does contain some conversations about abuse and sexual assault, not to mention drug use like a lot of our stuff will. So just wanted to give you a heads up as we go in, and thank you for tuning in.
Never gonna carry those chains again. Never gonna carry those chains again. Yeah. I'm never gonna carry those chains again.
Hello everyone, we are so excited today to start recording Escaping the Chains podcast, and today we're going to get into a testimony. That's what we're going to do a lot, is kind of focus on what God has done in people's lives and what he's freed them from. That's where we kind of came up with the name, is like, how are people finding freedom from trauma, addiction, religion, all kinds of things. So today we have our friend Jackie, and we're familiar with Jackie. We know her really well, and we're just going to kind of dig into her story about what she found freedom from, which is a lot of things. And it's really powerful. So just, sit back, pay attention, see what you can pull from it. And we'll do some questions as we go, but this is a really powerful one. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So we want to introduce Jackie, our friend. And Jackie, so I've known you for a while now, and I think one of the first memories I have from you, this is years ago, but you were in drug court, and they were doing a round table with you, and it was like, I think most people thought that drug court in Grant County, but I think most people thought like she's done, she's going to prison, but somehow you got through that, and since that we've seen a lot of changes in your life, and now like you're a leader in the community, which we'll talk about that at the end. Some of the things that God's had you step into that are really helping people. So, but we're excited to have you, and I know this can be a touch heavy. It's a heavy testimony. There's a lot of things in here that hopefully will unlock stuff for other people that have been through similar things. So, Jackie, I'm going to go ahead and let you dig in on, let's kind of start with where your addiction started and, how all of that came about.
Okay. My addiction started after I was in a car accident, and the doctor prescribed me pain pills. So you would think like after a car accident, you'd get prescribed like a 30-day supply of pain pills, and that would be the end of it. I was prescribed Oxycontin and Vicodin, and it was an ongoing supply. And every 4 hours, I was taking Oxycontin and I was taking Vicodin in the middle of those 4 hours. And my ex-husband at the time was snorting them, and so I was also supplying his habit too. And he was like, you should snort these. They'll help us like keep the house clean. And we still had a house, and we were still working. We were still raising the kids. We were functioning. From the outside looking in, you could see that we were still functioning, doing the ball games, doing what people would say the normies do.
Yeah.
And so we thought we still had it like all together until we didn't. And we were buying pain pills off the street, because that's when the opioid crisis happened. All of the pain clinics shut down. Spending $120 on one pill to split between two people. The Opanas started coming around. Then they changed it. It got to the point we were cooking them in the oven to try to, that way we could snort them,
Yes,
know?
I remember, like, so when this crisis happened, it was a frenzy.
Yeah.
For those of us that were using, it was like, oh my gosh, like everybody's just all over the place trying to figure out, like, how do we do this? And like you're transitioning back to pain pills. But I remember like the mess, like people don't understand the level you go to try to snort like an Oxycontin.
Madness.
Yeah, you're sitting there like trying all of these different things with an expensive pill. And I remember a couple of them just melting into goo, and it was like,
Yeah.
that was rough. But And you also said like you had this perfect looking life until, but then on the inside, all of this stuff was unraveling. And that's, I think a lot of people go through that part
Yeah.
until, something eventually, the thing about it is it's going to catch you. Your addiction, your bad habits, like they catch you, you know what I mean? So yeah, continue. Let's hear more.
Yeah, it always does, and a lot of our domestic disputes weren't over like normal things. They were over pain pills and taking too long or, sneaking around and hiding for the addiction. And so, like, there was a lot of physical violence, a lot of cheating and lying and manipulation. So there was a lot of those things in that marriage. And once the whole pain pill crisis was going on, the pain clinic shut down. There was no longer pain pills. Like, they were very few and far between, like, finding them. We were running out of money. I did not know that I was like really that physically dependent because I hadn't went without. Then all of a sudden, like, I was sweating and, my stomach was bubbling. Like, I just didn't want to do anything. And my friend was like, you're in withdrawal. And I was like, no, like, I'm not in withdrawal. It's like, people that, like, that's not a thing. And she's like, yeah, you're in withdrawals and you need something, and I have some heroin. And I was like, that's for like people that are at the bottom of the barrel, and that's not me, And I like, for me, my thinking at that time was people that do heroin, like, those are the people that are behind dumpsters. Like, that's just where my mindset was at the time. And she's like, I have this heroin, and I'm willing to share it with you, and it's going to make you feel better. But I only have a needle, and this is the way I'm doing it because it's just a little bit, and I feel like crap too, so I'm willing to share it with you, but you got to do it this way. And so I did, and not only did I share the heroin with her, I shared a needle with her. So, like, I just went from, like, 0 to 100 in, like, a split second without even thinking about it, and it was off to the races from there. So I quickly started, like, dabbling into methamphetamine and Molly and, every substance you could think of, I did. And so then I started running around with the wrong crowds. My marriage failed. 2 relationships failed. After that, I lost my house, lost my kids, lost my job, lost my family. I really started losing everything except for my car. I had a car that I had paid off with a tax check, and it was a little 4-door Buick, and I was like, well, I haven't lost everything, and I'm going to live out of my car,
Yeah.
Like, I'm still doing pretty good.
How quick from the time that you shot up would you say that you were full blown, like, addicted to
Oh,
that?
it took, like, probably 4 months, maybe 4 to 6 months. And I think that it was, so I lost my dad in 2016. And so from 2016 to, and that was in March of 2016. And by August of 2017, I had probably lost literally everything that I had, plus caught multiple charges in between that period of time. So I ended up in drug court in 2017. So if that tells you how many charges I had racked up in that period of time, yeah, it was bad. So going back, I had that car. I had lost everything. My family was like, we're done with you. You're not allowed to, like, we're not even going to talk to you. You're not invited to any of our Thanksgivings, any of our Christmases. They held a boundary, and I'm grateful for that now. But at the time, I thought they were the worst people in the world.
Isn't that something that we struggle with in the world where we work a lot of times? Like, there's the what is enabling, what's not enabling, what do I do with my adult child that can't seem to get off the streets, can't seem to quit stealing or using. it's such a hard conversation to have with parents or grandparents or family members, but we have to have it all the time of like, you have to set boundaries. And like for me, I'm like, it doesn't mean you can't like meet them for coffee, but but you have to, at some point, you have to put your foot down and be like, I cannot be a part of the way you're living. And it's really hard. And the Bible talks about sometimes you got to hand somebody over to the enemy so God can do his work.
Absolutely.
And it's really difficult, but you probably hear that a lot too. What would you say to somebody like when they talk about enabling and what am I supposed to, what should I do with this person in my life that can't seem to get off of the drugs, and every time they're at my house, they're taking something or creating chaos? What kind of advice do you give in that situation?
The advice that I give is you're going to love them to death, to their own death. Like that's what you're going to do. And my family, they gave me so much money, and it didn't matter what excuse I gave them that I needed the money for. If I was starving, if I needed a phone, because they wanted me to have a phone on so that they could contact me to know if I was dead or not. If there's an emergency, the police are going to contact you.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to get in contact with you. Your prayers and you cooking a dinner or making a meal, those things are the ways that you can help, but you have to have a boundary. Like you giving them money and you giving them rides to and from drug houses, you're keeping them out there. You're making it way too comfortable for them to keep using.
Yeah, when I was in that lifestyle, everything that I asked for was some kind of a manipulative thing. If I said, hey, I need gas money, or hey, can I use your car? Like, it was never for anything good. No. I was never just going to the gas station to get a fountain drink. That's the stuff we tell people, but the truth is, and when you're in that lifestyle, one of the things is you fear being sick so much that you will really do just about anything to not feel that way. But it's every time you get around, you're almost like a salesperson. Yeah. It's like, what can I pull out of this situation to get whatever it is I need to get high? So for me, when I was getting high, I liked getting food and stuff, but anything, I just was trying to turn anything into getting high.
I did too. And my mom would be like, I'll go buy you groceries. But I had dealers who would buy my meat. You know what I mean? So your prayers are probably the only thing that's going to save them in your tough love. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you do have to hand them over to the enemy so that God can do his work. You're going to love them to death.
Yeah, and a lot of times now it's people will come to you and be like, okay, this person needs help. And you're like, okay, I want to, work with them, but they didn't even contact me. Mm-hmm. And what they'll say is okay, well, I'm going to go to treatment next week because of this, that, or the other thing. And they have all of these excuses. But the truth is, when you're active addiction, there's nothing to take care of. You don't have affairs to line up, You need to just go. And I think that a lot of times people, or they'll say, I'm going to go to a meeting, and none of that stuff's bad, but they know how, we have learned how to appease the people around us to give them a little bit so we can get the grace back that we need to, have a place to stay or to not get the car taken away. Because we're not just codependent in relationships, we're codependent with family and any kind of resource that we have. And that's something I've always noticed. It's well, I'll go tomorrow. They always act like they have so much business, and I did it too, but you act like you have so much business to tend to. You don't have anything to tend to. It's you're just thinking, I'm going to get high one more time. And then it turns into a week. And that's because a lot of people are well, I don't want to kick them out, because then what if something happens to them? If they're actively using, something can happen to them in the house,
right?
It doesn't change they're not going to be using any more on the streets than they are if they may use less because they have to pull all the resources. So,
and my excuse was always I want to see my kids. I hadn't seen my kids in I don't know how long. So why would I want to see my kids before I go to treatment? That was the last thing on my mind. I was that selfish, and that's not who I am at my core, and that's not who that other individuals who are in addiction are at their core. They're just sick, and they're in there. that's just not what they're thinking about at that time. They just don't want to be sick anymore. So I was running around with the wrong people. I ended up in Gas City because I was in a very codependent relationship. I knew it was bad for me. I had tried getting clean multiple times in this relationship. Maintained a relationship while he was incarcerated. He got out clean. I'd moved to another state, then came back because he was on probation. I was going to stay in my car because, probation was like he had to be in Gas City, staying at his grandma's. Like I was just that codependent in this relationship. And I remember he was like, we're going to go to this house in Gas City. I'm going to make a deal. And, it was going to be, he had a warrant at the time. And I remember the whole situation just felt very off to me. It was very sketchy. And he decided that he was going to leave with the owner of this house, and they were going to go make a deal. And when he left, I just was like, why would you just leave me at this random house, like by myself, leave with another lady? Like, this is so weird to me. And I was sitting there, and then there was a knock on the door, and then three of these males came, and they each took turns taking advantage of me, and putting cigarettes out on me, just really assaulting me. I remember, so I share this testimony, and I never get into like full detail with it because it's really hard for me to share. I do share it a lot with the ladies that I work with one-on-one. But during that time of them assaulting me and, spitting on me and burning me with cigarettes and, pulling my hair, and I'm bleeding. I'm just a wreck, I'm a mess. They're doing unimaginable things that you would not want to happen to anybody that you care about. Nobody deserves those things. But I remember thinking to my core, like, I deserve these things for all of the things that I had done, during my addiction, all of the things I put my kids through, all of the things that I put my family through. Like, I had deserved these things, and I felt like I was going to die. Like, I honestly felt like I was going to die. I felt worthless in that moment, and I remember gathering up enough strength to leave. I felt like I just wasn't enough. Like, why would somebody leave me here in this situation? Like, somebody that I cared so much about, like, why would they do that to me? And it was November or December. I couldn't even tell you exactly what day this was. I had no shoes on. I was in like capris and a pink shirt, gray capris and a pink shirt or something. I had been on meth and fentanyl at the time. And I was in Gas City. I walked out of this house, like the side door of this house. And I remember the voice in my head telling me, like, you need to run into oncoming traffic. Like, you need to kill yourself. Like this is it for you. Like, you need to kill yourself. And the main road in Gas City was like a couple streets over. Like, it wasn't far. It seemed really far, like, at that moment, but it wasn't really far away. And like, all I had to do was go right, like, to my right. And I'm hearing, like, you need to walk into this oncoming traffic. And I'm hearing, like, God, what I'm thinking is God's voice out of my the left side of my head. Like, I'm hearing, you need to get to a church, And the only thing now looking back that I'm thinking is because I grew up in church. Like, my mom made sure that I was at church every Thursday, every Sunday. There was people in my life that always spoke truth to me and, taught me about God. And that I was loved and worthy, and that I had value and purpose. And they taught me about God, because had I grown up not knowing God, I probably would not, have had listened to that voice in this moment,
So, them speaking life into you when you were a kid, like at this horrible, like unimaginable moment in your life, you're really like you're really debating ending everything,
Yeah.
and them speaking life into you comes echoing back, and gosh, that's why it's so important with our kids and the people around us. You always hear people say, "Speak," we need to speak life, but how amazing is that in such a bad, in such a moment to where it's like you have been through enough to where you're like, I'm done.
Yeah.
And you start to hear like that those voices and people speaking life into you. So like when the Bible talks about like the power of life and death is in the tongue, the things that we say to the people around us and the things that we're saying to our kids, it's so important, because we can tell them something and then 10, 15, 20 years later, they could be at this breaking point and then hear, I know I have value. I know that I'm loved.
Yeah.
When you really like nothing around you makes you feel that way, and the stuff that's going on, you literally hear that voice or that love come back through. And this part of your story, because I have heard it again, is so, and I want to get back on topic, but I just think about like with my daughters now, it's like you have all of this pressure on how to raise them and everything, but like I feel like the most important thing that I can do for them is try to build a relationship with God and let them know that they're loved, because the world's going to tell them that they don't have value, and there's going to be things that happen in life to us to where it's like we will be told and treated like we are worthless, and the hope is the life that we spoke into somebody echoes and shows up in that time, and God shows up in that time because they have some kind of a relationship with him. So you have two things going on here. You're thinking about running into traffic, but you're hearing that I need to go to this church.
Yeah. And, I'm yelling at God, I'm cursing at God, like, I don't know where this blank church is. Like, I'm lost, and I just went through something very traumatic. I'm under the influence. I'm in shock. It's cold. I'm barefoot. I am in the middle of the street, like heading towards traffic. And the only voice that's giving me clear direction is what I say is the devil's voice saying, you need to go this way. That's the clear direction that I'm hearing. But I'm hearing God say, turn around, and it's taking me back to where I came from, and so I'm very scared to do that. But I turn around, I'm like, I don't want to walk into oncoming traffic. Like, I know that I don't want to kill myself. And so I turn around and I start heading, like in the direction that I'm hearing, and the whole time I'm yelling at God, like, where am I going? I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm cursing, and, I'm frantic. And I make it to this church, and it's a little ways away, and I make it. It's 11 o'clock, I think, at night. It's dark, and I get there. The doors are unlocked. I open the church doors, like, praise God, I didn't get, like, a breaking and entering charge, Praise God for that. But I walk into this church, and I turn every light on in the church. I'm freezing, and I see, like, coffee station, and so I'm like, I'm going to make a cup of coffee. I'm still talking to God, like, like, I need to warm up because, I don't know what I'm thinking. I'm just really frantic at this moment. And so I make coffee, and then I hear God saying, you need to get to the altar, like, find the altar. And so, like, this church is big, and, like, I'm walking around in this church, and it's dark. The only light that's on is, like, through the entryway that I turn on, like, the welcome center. And so I find the sanctuary of this church. And so I just sit down in a pew, like, I had just fast walked, through Gas City, dark time, barefoot, bloody mess, like a wreck. And I just sit down and I still hear him like, get to the altar. But the amazing thing is the other voice had stopped, like I wasn't hearing that. So the only thing I could hear was God's voice at this time. And I'm sitting down and he's like, get to the altar. And so like I kneel at the altar and I'm like, I'm here. Like I am here. Like, what do you want from me? And at this time, the people that live next door to the church come in to the church. I find out later that they are involved with the church or work with the church or something. They've seen all of the lights come on in the church, and they're like, we better go check this out. And so they come in, and they asked me, like, what's going on? And I said, I need help. Like, that's the only thing I could say was, like, I need help. And they go and get a blanket, and they drove me to the hospital that night. And that was, like, the beginning of my recovery journey. I ended up at Cornerstone at the time on the inpatient unit, and I stayed there for 10 days. I got on the Vivitrol shot. Like most people who start the recovery journey, there was a relapse shortly after that. I made it, I think, 45 days. And then I relapsed and ended up in the drug court program. And then from that point on, I made it 18 months in the drug court program. I got remarried, ended up in the drug court program. That relationship was more, we got married and thought we were going to like drug court because we were both in drug court, and we were like, yeah, we'll just get married and then they won't be able to keep us separated kind of thing, and very codependent. There was a lot of like dishonesty and like physical abuse and things of that nature. Had I known then what I know now, I probably would have been more honest and upfront about the things that we were both struggling with at the time. However, it did not work out that way. There was a relapse on both of our parts, and we both got terminated from drug court, and I thought, like, I'm done. Like, that's where, there was the round table.
Yeah.
And that's where, you had originally, like, first met me, I think, or heard of me. I'm sitting in jail, and I thought, at this time, my daughter Harmony is with my sister. I'm sitting in jail thinking, like, I'm just going to do my home detention with my mom. Like, why I thought, after my family had wrote me off, why I thought in my brain, like, because I had that 18 months of sobriety during drug court before the relapse, I thought maybe that they would let me out and do my home detention at my mom's. They had that boundary and was like, no, like, you're not coming here. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to go to prison, like, here we go. And I go over to the courthouse for my sentencing, and Tia is sitting in the courtroom. I believe she's there for somebody else at the time. And the Hope House had just opened in April, and this is in May of 2020. And they're like, would you be willing to do your home detention at the Hope? Would you be willing to do home detention at the Hope House? Sober living. And I was like, sure, like, absolutely. But I didn't know what I was getting myself into,
Yeah.
But praise God I did. It changed my life. So
Tia, that's a nice face to see when you're in trouble, I'm sure, because she basically runs the Hope Houses now. But yeah, she's a good friend of ours. So that's really cool. I want to dig into a couple things before we go any further. So one of the things that we run into in the world that we come from is a lot of times, I think, especially women, it can happen to men, but women feel like if something bad happens to them, they deserve it, or they don't have any rights, or like, why say anything? And I know some of the people in this community, prosecutors and stuff, have reached out to us to try to, get some kind of like shine some kind of light on that, because I think so much stuff doesn't get reported, because it's like, well, I deserved it, or I don't, I was living this lifestyle which is not true. Right. So it's still like if you get assaulted, it's assault. And like you do, no matter how you're living or the mistakes that you've made, like you still have value, and people just can't like treat you the way that they want to, and then you just write it off like I deserved it. So if you could speak right now to a woman or a young lady that has went through something like that, or continues to subject herself to that kind of stuff because she feels like she deserves it, or she's not worthy, or she's staying stuck, whether it's a relationship or like a lifestyle to where she just receives the abuse because she thinks, what would you say to her?
I would say that there is nothing that you do is deserving of anyone putting their hands on you. No matter how much you love them, no matter how much they tell you they're going to change, unless they seriously do the work that it takes. I believe that God can truly change someone's heart and change them. I do truly believe that. But I believe that there is help out there, but you have to speak up, and don't wait until it's too late to speak up.
Yeah, because what happens a lot of times is we want to, as males, we will isolate you. So, some of those signs is like pulling you away from your family, kind of separating you from your kids, and all of the things that would protect you, or you make good decisions for, anything that would be a threat to them being the dictator of your life. So like if you're in something like that and you're in the early stages, just get out.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter how cute he is or she is, because it can go kind of both ways. But when they start to pull you away from the things that actually protect you or mean something to you, get out. Like right now, get out. And you'll come up with stuff like, well, I don't have this or that. But staying there could kill you.
Yeah.
And being separated from your family and your kids, like it's not worth it. You need to get out.
Yeah, because like for me, the cycle was always, I would see the signs and I would know the signs, and it was almost like everything was always flipped back, and it would almost be like I would be asking myself, well, maybe I shouldn't have done that, or maybe I shouldn't have. I would be defending them, because when I did share it with close friends, I'd be sharing like the struggles, or like, hey, he knocked my front tooth out, or whatever, and they'd be like, well, I shouldn't have said this, or I shouldn't have said that. I would be defending in that situation. But I do remember the one time in my first marriage, I did reach out for help, and they said, well, what did you do to make him mad? And so that set the tone for me, like reaching out for help. But I know now, like, I will never tolerate anything like that at this point in my life that I'm at now. But
it takes a lot of healing and growing.
Right.
Because I was having a conversation the other day about something similar, and we get so confused and mixed up on like what love is.
Yeah.
So then, so if somebody's possessive or controlling, we see that as love. So then when we get out into the, if we're blessed enough to get free from these things, we still operate like that. So for me, it's like if she's not, and it takes a lot of healing to get away from that. But if they're not like obsessive over you or controlling over you, they don't care.
yeah,
So even when you're in that world, like you're jumping and you're like, well, this person actually, they do nice things for me, but they give me my freedom and stuff. So like, this is a weird feeling. This
Right.
can't be love. Love is somebody totally trying to control, the Bonnie and Clyde, Joker and Harley mentality. And it's like, that's control and completely selfish when somebody's doing that. But it took me a lot of detoxing spiritually, and I probably still am going through it to an extent of like, what does healthy attention look like, and what does a healthy relationship look like? And I see them, and I ask questions, and I have pastors and people around me, but it took a lot to be like, okay, this person doesn't like me because they're not blowing my phone up 24/7, and they're not asking me for my location, and they're not asking me what I'm doing constantly.
I think it's, especially when you come out of relationships that are very toxic, healthy relationships are uncomfortable. I mean, they're just uncomfortable to you. I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's just a learning and growing thing. So,
Well, what do I do if she's not throwing coffee cups at my head? What do we do for fun? Like, what are we supposed to be doing? You know what I mean?
yeah.
Okay, so you're in drug court,
Yeah.
and you move into the Hope House. And so the Hope House is a transitional house in Grant County. I've worked with them and done work with them. It's an amazing place, and we really love the people that operate that. And you said Tia, she's like a family to me.
Yes.
So you're at the Hope House. Let's continue.
Yeah, so I am at the Hope House. It is a 9-month program. I was sentenced to the Hope House to do my home detention. So when I get there, things are going really well. I think I was the 5th resident, I believe, at this point in time. So it was still fairly new. There was only one house. We hadn't opened the second house at that point. And so things were going really well. I loved being at the Hope House. Like, at first I was like, I don't know how this is going to work, just living with other people, a bunch of different women, a bunch of different personalities, and it was very challenging. And it took me a while to really get out of like my old thinking and to get out of my own way, because there was like things that were going on at the Hope House. And I still wanted to be like really like quiet. I didn't want to tattle like about certain things that were going on. Or I would like tell the house manager like this is going on, but I didn't want to confront it like to the group. Like I was still very like, I wanted to make sure that they knew what was going on, but I was still not confrontational at this point in time. And so just learning and growing in that process, it was very slow for me at first. Then I heard Jamie Blevins give her testimony at God's house. And so I heard her giving her testimony, and I was like, I want her to be my sponsor, And so I reached out to her, and she was like, oh, no, like, I don't sponsor people because I found my identity in sponsorship, and I relapsed, and, she was like, I absolutely don't, I don't want to be called a sponsor. But she's like, well, let me pray on it, And so she prayed on it, and so she reached out to Tia and was like, I would be willing to, like, run the ladies through the steps. And there was a big group of us at this point in time, and she was coming to the house and was doing step work with all of us ladies. But when it got to, so she was coming every single week and taking us through the steps. And by the end of it, it was just me and Jamie, like, standing. And she was like, okay, so it's just me and you. And I was like, yeah, so are you going to take me through the steps now?
Right.
And so Jamie ended up taking me through the steps. And from that point on, I really honed in on my recovery. And Jamie also helped me with my relationship with Christ and building back my relationship with Christ, my faith in Christ. And I really honed in on like the devotions at the Hope House and surrounding myself with people who are serving and going to church. And I really had no interest, not no interest, but I really wanted to be around people who were growing and people who had what I wanted to have. And that was relationship and community and recovery. And I didn't want to listen to music, and it was my own personal conviction, like I didn't want to listen to music or things that I felt were not good for me. And, I often got criticized for that, like, why do you only listen to worship music, or why,
Yeah.
you might end up in a cult or something. So people, and so sometimes I would, that would like make me really question like some things, because I'm like, do I want to lose my friends or my whatever, or is this the path that I want to take? And I'm like, this is absolutely the path that I want to take, and so I'm working with Jamie, and we've developed like this wonderful friendship and sisterhood, and I ended up modifying off of home detention early, and we go to court, and Judge Spitzer, so he is also the judge that sentenced me to the Hope House, and who terminated me from drug court, and he was like, I will modify you off of your home detention because you are doing so well. I had no issues on home detention, no issues at Hope House. I'm doing visitations with my daughter Harmony at this time, and my sons on the weekend. And he's like, I'm going to modify you off of home detention, and we're going to put you on probation. However, you have to serve out the remainder of your probation at the Hope House. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
How long was it?
Until July. So I left the Hope House July of 2021, I believe. So I was there I was there almost 16 months, 14 to 16 months, somewhere in there. And so this was 2021. So I did. I stayed there. I ended up becoming the house manager. And during that period of time, I was, I was serving at God's house, and I was just active in the community. During my transition out of the Hope House, we got our apartment, and so I was doing my weekends at our apartment with our daughter, Harmony. And so the transition was like I still had accountability, like with my community, my recovery community, and with Tia and my mentor, Jamie. And we had our apartment. And so I decided I wanted to get my peer recovery coach certification. And then I started working for Fort Wayne Recovery as a tech. And so then I went to Fort Wayne Recovery, and I started working there. We got pregnant for Emmy, our 2-year-old now, and then I decided, like, hey, I want to come work for CORE. And so then I came and worked for CORE, and then the grant funding ended. I joined the Hope House board during that period of time, and then went and worked for Radiant Health because the grant funding ended for CORE. And while I was on the Hope House board, Tia approached me and was like, hey, you should apply for this position as a director for a women's sober living home in Wabash. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, I am not qualified for that position. And she was like, sure you are. And I'm like, you're so encouraging, Tia. Like, God love her. But, and she reminded me, and everyone that I called, that was in my support system was like, God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. And I decided to take that position, and here I am, now directing a women's sober living home in Wabash at Waypoint.
Waypoint. We love it over there. I do some work in Wabash too. We're kind of all over the place. So as we wrap up, there's a couple of things that I want to touch on really fast. And one is the part of your story where, and I think a lot of people come to this place in their life where I am so done, right? Like I'm so traumatized, I'm so done. And it's like I am either going to just completely self-destruct, I'm going to run into traffic, or, I'm going to run to the arms of Jesus Christ and, see what happens, right? And I think that that's such a powerful moment in your story. Without that, where would we be? Even if you didn't end it there, who knows where that path would have taken you, probably to Cornerstone more than, but you know what I mean? And so like anybody listening to this or watching the clips or whatever, you have these moments, and they're like these breakthrough moments. And we see people in the field where we work, which is addiction,
Yeah.
and recovery. We see people get faced with this decision a lot, and a lot of people choose to, it's more metaphoric, but they decide to run into traffic instead of towards God and the good things, and they choose to believe the lie
Yeah.
that they have no value, and they take this path, and we've lost friends, and many of them don't come back. But there's a truth out there, and I know sometimes people try to silence it, but the truth is that Jesus Christ is waiting there with his arms open. He waited for the prodigal son. There's all kinds of stories in your Bible that he is waiting there for you to come home. He hasn't judged you. You're still his daughter. You're still his son. He loves you. He died for you. And all of that stuff that you have deemed yourself unworthy because of, or, unholy or dirty, and all of that stuff, he paid for that. And there's freedom on the other side of the cross if you just give it a chance. And if you're at that place where you're thinking about running into self-destruction, what do you have to lose to just turn right for a second and be like, you know what, maybe I will pick up my Bible, or maybe I will walk into this church, or maybe I will call somebody in my family that, follows Christ, and just see why it is that we see so many people finding freedom, not just recovery, not just programs, but finding actual freedom when they fall at the feet of the cross and they give their life to Christ. We see so many people find freedom.
That had me thinking, like, with Job, how he, was in that moment of like, I just want to die, and God, or, Jesus met him and was like, God they spoke to him in the storm, and that's what he did with me. Like, I was in the middle of that storm, and he spoke to me, and that's when he does speak to me, in the middle of my storm. But I like to hear from him when I'm not in the storm too, you know? And I think, like, you and I had the conversation about the woman at the well, and how at different points of our life, we can resonate with different people in the Bible. And the woman at the well, I think that's where those of us who come out of addiction and into recovery, that's where it's important for us to reach back and get the others who are still struggling, because, like, our testimony is what can help them, we made it through, and why maybe the path that we took may not be the path that they're going to take, but like we can be the hope for them. And we can help them out.
Run back to town and say the Messiah is here, freedom is here, hope is here. And that's the thing, I think, with the Bible and with people in active addiction, there are so many stories in there for us that people don't understand, and we won't dig in too much. But even the thief on the cross, he was just a thief on the cross. He didn't even, we don't even know his name. But a lot of people, when you're in addiction, people don't want to be around you because you're a thief. You steal everything. But Jesus took this dude on a cross and, like, turned his, just in the last moments, and really some of the last moments of Jesus' ministry before resurrection, he took this guy to heaven with him. So we thank you for coming on. And
thanks for having me.
And we probably need to get Jamie on and Sam on. So her husband, Sam, we love him so much. He's one of my best friends. And go follow Waypoint on Facebook. A lot of good things going on in Wabash. I know that Jackie sits on some committees and stuff over there. Go check out Waypoint. They're doing some really good stuff there. They just did a car wash for one of our friends who passed away, or they were helping with the car wash over there. They were helping with it. So go like and follow the page, Waypoint, Escaping the Chains podcast. Go check us out on any place you can check us out. And Delivered Media is our production team, and we really appreciate them for having us. And here's the thing. I want to leave you with this. If you're feeling hopeless and not worthy, or, all of those heavy feelings, you have nothing to lose by opening your Bible, by going to church, by trying to pray. I found freedom just crying out to Jesus Christ, and I didn't even believe in him at the time. So if you're in that place, you have nothing to lose. Spend 5-10 minutes and, just see what this God is all about that you hear people talking about. We love you guys, and please tune in next time when we do testimonies or we talk about the Bible or Jesus or something like that, but I promise you we'll be talking about Jesus.